The Jews saw them all, beat them all, and his...
Sorry, wrong
Leo,
screen.
we see your whole desktop.
Yeah, I know. I know. Oh my God. It's hold on, everyone. Let's try this again. We really should do a better job at no, than Zoom. We really should do a better job at Zoom. Okay. All right. Let's try it again. All right. Again.
The Jews saw them all, beat them all, and is now... The Jews saw them what he always was, beat them all things are mortal, and is now... The Jews saw them all other forces all things are mortal, and is now... The Jews saw them all other forces all things are mortal, and is now...
And welcome to the Thejewfunction. I am Leo. This is Seth.
Hello.
Seth, you're a little soft. You want to get a little close to the mic.
Yeah, we go.
Very happy to be here. We had a little vacation. You can't really call it a vacation, but we had a little time to ourselves. And now we're back at it. And we're, well, not surprised to see that the whole Jew thing is still a problem. And
is that what's going on?
I thought we'd go away and come back, and everything is going to be solved. But it's still an issue. Israel is on the verge of war with Lebanon and a few other countries in the process. Probably America.
They send tons of they bomb us, we bomb them. We're on the verge of war. That's not actually a war.
Yeah, it's like we're dating. It's not. We're not sure we're right for each other. America is on the verge of election or civil war. The UK is also having a great time. And the world in general is a fun place. And we're really happy to be in the middle of all of this, right in the midst, and trying to figure this out. We believe we have a solution to this age-old problem. If you're new to the Thejewfunction, you can check out our first 22 episodes, and you'll find like the complete thesis sort of laid out beautifully with great score and soundtrack and excerpts from a mystery book. It's a fun listen. If you like long walks or a run or something, this is great. If you commute, I highly recommend it. And then once we laid it out, we started bringing people here on the show to talk to them, to see what they think about our crazy idea. It's not so crazy actually anymore, but used to sound more crazy. Now it sounds actually relatively,
basically run out of all other options. So
exactly. We're getting very close to that. So this is where we are, and we've had I think we're really blessed to get some phenomenal people here, each one unique, a gem. And we bring here, we talk to anyone, Jews, non-Jews. We spoke to a few anti-Semites, we had Muslims, Christians, really anyone who has a point of view and wants to talk. We welcome that conversation, and we feel more people should have that conversation. Seth, have you had that conversation today with someone?
Not yet today.
Not yet. Okay, so that's where we're starting. Very good. So today we, I feel like there's not much to intro besides the fact that really, the success. I'll just say this: the success of this war effort, our ability to sort of push back the enemies, to gain some grounds and create a little buffer zone will help us, I think, Jews everywhere in Israel and around the world, evaluate our place in society, in the world, and what we need to do, where we need to go. I don't think it's going to be a solution that's going to like put us back on the, on the horse, and we're going to be the darlings of the world again and everything. I don't think it's that, but I think it's going to buy us some time, allow us to regroup and think. And so I feel like this is laying the groundwork for that moment, that we do have some time to think, because I think it's clear that it's not a fair fight, right? I mean, the world is not, somehow it doesn't add up. And our guest today also, he spoke to a lot of people, and a lot of them are saying the same thing, like, oh, this should be this, it should be that, like, and this is crazy and this is crazy. Yeah, it's all crazy, but where is the logic? Where is the sense in all of it? I hope we have something. Seth, do you have any words of wisdom before we bring in our guest? I feel like
let's bring Ollie.
Yeah. Oh, well, hold on. So hold on. Before it says so, our guest. Let me give a proper intro. Our guest is a great guy. I stumbled upon his content and I was like, wow, who's this guy? And I thought he looked young, and apparently they did start young. I'm not sure actually when did he start, but but he's young. He's like half our age, or combined age is quarter our combined age. So this is phenomenal, and he's literally a media mogul, self-described on his website. And he founded the channel JTV out of London with the idea of filling a gap in the market, right? Something that will bring content around Jewish identity and be new, high quality, essentially a global channel. And he lived up to that promise. He had some phenomenal guests lately, the son of Hamas, Douglas Murray, and just a lot of other interesting people. So I'm really interested to hear his point of view, what he heard, what he learned from all his interviews, and also his personal take, being a young Jew in London. And I think it's going to be a great conversation. So without further ado, Ollie Anisfeld, please join us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
So,
Good to be
how are you these days?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. There's a lot of challenging news and there's a lot of good news as well.
It's true. I mean, you do live on news, and I don't know if to ask now or later, but like, what compels a young Jew to wake up in one morning and start a media channel? I mean,
Well,
about Jewish content specifically. I mean,
um, well, the short story is that I became really inspired about Judaism, about Jewish wisdom, about the truth of Judaism, about Israel and Israel's story, and about the Jewish people's fateful role in world history. And I felt, okay, I feel that, but I fear that not enough of my young fellow Jewish peers feel that and are connected to that. And I don't blame them. I think part of that is because it hasn't been well articulated to them. And not enough, I felt also simultaneously, not enough is being done to reach people on modern social media and YouTube and those things. And a rabbi speaking in front of a bookshelf isn't going to cut it. We're going to need to think a little bit more out of the box. And at the same time, I also felt that now is the time for the Jewish people's voice to grow larger and start speaking to the wider world. It's something that we haven't had the chance to do throughout most of our history, through no fault of our own. But now we do. And so that was kind of the premise for JTV.
Ollie, what is the fateful role of the Jewish people?
wait, before hold on. Before you ask that, I just want one more question about the channel. When did you actually start it? Was that like a year ago?
2016.
Oh, 2016. Okay, so you've been doing
Yeah.
it for a while. And was there an event that sort of pushed you a trigger, or it was just something that gradually sort of accumulated in you, and you're like, okay, now it's time. I want to start it. Or was there something? Did you feel something? Was there anti-Jewish
Well,
sentiment in England? What was it?
there was one particular event which really was acted as a catalyst for my Jewish journey. In my teen years, I became more convinced by studying Jewish philosophy and like the big questions that one can ask about Judaism and life and God and all these things. And I became quite intellectually grounded in it all. But then nothing really changed dramatically in my life kind of lifestyle. But then I went on a trip to Poland when I was 17 years old. Went with a group of young Jews, and there was a particular moment for me when I was in a town called Lodz, or Łódź as it's pronounced in
Which,
Polish.
yeah.
And they have this train tracks where hundreds of thousands of Jews were sent to their deaths, and then they have this memorial tunnel I don't know if you've ever been, but it has sort of lists of names that the Nazis had on either side of the tunnel on the walls, and it just had loads and loads of red lines crossed through them with names that I recognize, Leibovich, Goldstein, Wolfman, all these. And we all sort of walk through this tunnel, and then you sort of walk out of this very dark tunnel with all these names of martyred Jews, basically, into this hall area with a big skylight. And this group of 50 Jews, young Jews, all kind of gathered in a circle singing Tehillim, Psalms. And I was at the back of the line. I just remember looking backwards and seeing all those Jews who we were standing on the shoulders of, and then looking forward to see that, they didn't succeed, the Nazis, and look at us. We're still a group of young Jews vibrantly clinging to our values and our faith and our heritage. And what I'd learned throughout those years, the miracle of Jewish history and the Jewish story, and as I say, the fateful role of the Jewish people in the world, where they break all the laws of history and nature, it became real to me. It became really real to me at that moment, and then from that point, I became committed to this cause.
Yeah, so I'm always trying to get to the, what exactly is this thing?
Tachlis, that is the Tachlis guy.
Yeah, when we talk to a lot of people, sometimes in the conversations, it could be, they're Cherokee Indians, and they have the same thing. Our people, where they tried to kill our people, and now we need to survive and teach our children about our heritage, or the African American plight, or anyone. There's got to be hundreds of groups around the world who somebody tried to kill them, and now they're trying to survive. So I want to specifically understand we want to get to the root of, is there something, or what is this special thing about this group? What is the unique thing about this group? And when you said the fateful role, it was almost like you teased this out already. So help us understand this part.
To be honest, I'm surprised that it's not, that you don't know. I'm surprised. It's not pretty well known what the Jewish people's role is in the world.
So hold on. So we could talk for a couple hours about our perspective, but what we're trying to get to is that it should be really clear and almost second nature to the world who Jews are. And so it's not enough that Spiegler and I can sit around all day, talking about Jewish sages, or talking about history, or talking about, what Mark Twain said, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. But how do we connect this network out to all of these other hubs in the network that are doing things, and see if we can get the juices flowing there? So
let's hear Ollie's story. Let's hear from you.
Well, it's funny. It's an enigma to Jews, and Jews can debate it for hours and hours, but non-Jews are absolutely clear on who we are. They don't need much. Convincing. They know it. Often they don't like it, but they know it. Which is that the Jewish people are God's chosen people, and He chose the Jews to be His voice to the world, to express His vision for the kind of world that He wants to dwell in, and for the kind of choices He wishes us to make. So in essence, it's the Jews were chosen to be God's voice to the world.
So sticking to the Tachlis, what are those things that God wants the world to know about, that the Jews need to tell the world about?
So, He laid it all out for us.
And why does He need the Jews, who sometimes can get we can get lost in the in words a little bit. We can lost in translation. Well, so what is His message, and what do we have to do with it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably kind of what He likes about us. We don't just take things at face value. We really research, we dig, we really try to get to the, if God represents a truth that is infinite. Part of the reason that He's likes us is because that we're not just easily seduced and take things at face value. We're a stubborn people who we're going to have a relationship with Him. We want something real and something deep, which I think is a really beautiful way to look at it, and look at the Jewish people's some of our quirks. But what does he want? In essence, he wants us to partner with him in making this world better. And that's what serving him means, and not just wants it, but needs it, actually. This is an essential thing for him. The world, nothing else could have inspired God to create this universe other than himself. And so whatever it is must be, the purpose of this world must be absolutely essential to him, and absolutely necessary. And so that means that every human being is created because they're needed by God to partner with him in making this world better. And what does that look like? It looks like making this world more livable for people, so alleviating suffering, which can be from inventing the toothbrush to looking after your neighbor who's struggling financially. It can mean, all kinds of things, to building a family, to building your community. But there's also more specific things as well. There's all kinds of, there's two real big elements, well, actually three big elements to our relationship with the world. One is with ourselves, the second is with our fellow human being, and the third is through our relationship with God. And in terms of the relationship with the human being, it's spelled out in Torah in all kinds of ways, whether it's all kinds of specific concretized things, whether it's giving 10% of your money to charity, whether it's honoring your parents. And Judaism goes into the details of what that looks like. It means not sitting in your parents' seat. It means not calling them by their first names. Whether it's not gossiping and speaking badly about people, and making sure that whatever you say is completely true, kind, and necessary. It means judging people favorably, but also knowing when you sometimes do need to intervene and probe. It's a whole host of issues, and it's really spelled out in the Torah, and the Jewish people's role is really to teach the world about these things. Now, there are some more specific things that are related to man and God, which only the Jewish people are commanded to do. And that's partly because the partnership that we have with the rest of the world is that the Jewish people's role is to try and is playing a more leading role in bringing God and godliness into this world, whereas the nation of the world are meant to, their greater focus is on making this world more comfortable and livable and elevating it towards God. And so you sort of have that partnership between the two. So things like tefillin or Shabbat and things like that, that's more of a Jewish people-led part of Torah observance. And as I say, then the third part is what our relationship with ourselves, and working on certain traits like patience and gratitude and humility, and controlling our urges, and all those things are ways in which we make this world more godly, which is part of that plan.
Why? I'm curious. I mean, I'm not asking you as an authority, a rabbi or Kabbalist or anything like that, but really, I'm just, your view on it and what you found out. Why do you think, as I said, God, needs this kind of relationship? I mean, you could have made a world that's already working pretty well. Why did this long detour?
Right. Exactly. Like, what's all this what's this balagan about? All this suffering and misery and difficulty. Well, there is a lot of, I'm not a rabbi, but we have a lot of rabbinical insight into this, which explains that if God is looking for a relationship, if that's what he's ultimately looking for, and that's what he's after, a perfect world, a world in which basically his presence is fully manifest and he's obvious and there's only goodness, there's no real relationship to build. You only have a relationship and a partnership when two people willingly choose it. There's no willful choice when you're at Mount Sinai and God is standing over you saying, if you don't do this, it's all over. And so part of the process of history is that God wishes to slowly hide his face, become more subtle, so that we truly have that free will, to make that relationship meaningful. And anyone will tell you that the most healthy and meaningful relationships are ones in which the two people chose to be there, and they wish to be there of their own free will. And that's what Adam and Eve effectively realized when they're in the garden. They're like, clearly it seems God wants us to eat from this tree of good and evil and go down into this lower world, because there's nothing to do here in paradise, nothing to do here in the Garden of Eden. Let's go into this world of good and evil and partner with God in fixing it. So then you can truly have a relationship where you have two parties choosing to come closer to each other. And as for why he would need it, the fact is, even if we don't know why, often we don't know why people love someone else or why they want a relationship, but they just do. So we can just marvel at that fact, and the fact that we're here, and the fact that the only thing that could have motivated God would have been himself. We can just say, well, clearly it is essential to him. But one little hint he does give us is that it's actually the first thing he told man. When he created man, he said, Adam and Eve were one being, and he said, it's not good for man to be alone, so I'm going to create you a partner. And I've heard some rabbinical commentary explaining that, seeing that we're created in his image, God was actually talking about himself. And when he's saying it's not good to be alone, he was also talking about himself, and that, yes, he's all powerful, mighty, all eternal, everything, but it was just him. And he deemed that there's nothing good in that.
Well, some would say that, you want someone to actually love you willingly. You don't want to make someone who already loves you. That will just be a robot, right? So where's the fun in that? That if you can make someone who can fall in love with you, discover you through effort and yearning and all of that, and as you said, develop a relationship, then that's a worthwhile undertaking, right?
There's another nuance.
Okay.
Because after all of these years, if we were to, other people would have different, data, but if we were to look at all of the contributions of Jews and really get into it, even like where Stoic philosophy came from, where Pythagoras got, really find out where all of these things came from, we'd find what kind of contributions the Jews made to the world. It should be a no-brainer. Like everyone should be like, you guys are great. Thank you for everything. I don't know how, we're sorry about everything, but you guys really did do a lot here, and we appreciate it. We're actually trying to help you guys on your mission. But that doesn't seem like that. I'm sure we have a lot of friends, actually. We don't hear about it probably enough, but I'm sure that around the world we do have a lot of friends. But it seems like a very, very difficult job, and you're a media guy. So it seems like if Jews should be good at anything, we should be really good at PR. But it seems that we're just constantly banging into a wall to get people to see, like, how can the Gretas of the world and just whoever it is, how could they be out there Hezbollah's been firing rockets at us over and over and over again. Let's take the beeper thing. I don't want to get into daily on the ground kind of stuff, because everything is way more nuanced than it seemed. But they're gonna send rockets over just onto people's homes, and then Israel's gonna retaliate just at the bad guys. But the world only then, or the world, I'm saying our news here in the US only looks at Israel as this aggressor, right? So it's like we're against this wall. And so
I think what Seth is asking is what are we doing wrong? You
or what are we missing in this situation? It just should be obvious. It's like a kid who doesn't look at his dad and say Dad, thanks for feeding me my whole life, and thanks for taking care of me, and thank you for putting me in college, and thank you for being patient. And instead, just total disrespect or total non-acknowledgement of anything.
I think the answer is because what I just said about who the Jewish people are and what our relationship is with the world, we're too scared to say. So we basically the big quest of Hasbara and Israel activism, just as you said, is to try to make the world treat us normal, just like everyone else. And we get so frustrated that the facts are so clearly in our favor, that Israel is so clearly acting humanely. And as you say, we're just bashing our heads because they're not accepting it. They're still treating us with double, sometimes even triple standards. And we get very frustrated by it. Why won't they treat us like every other normal country? And the reason it's not working is because they know that we're not like every other country. They know subconsciously, perhaps, that we are different.
And they will subconsciously.
Okay, this is the point.
Perhaps, yeah.
Well, so this is the point. I mean, our theory, which is, like I said, it's not ours. We have far wiser people than us talking about it for thousands of years. There were Jewish sages talking about it, and we just happen to also find historic patterns to corroborate it, and then also network science to support it. But our thing is that all the good things that we bring to the world, all this great stuff that we're doing, maybe that's not what the world needs from us. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's not a PR issue per se. It is. There is a PR issue. There's no question, but it's not a PR issue per se. I think that the world doesn't like the Jews right now, and therefore it uses all kinds of things to justify that feeling. If the world genuinely liked the Jews, loved, appreciated, valued their presence, then they would find reasons, rational reasons, to justify that love, right? Almost like when you love someone, you kind of sort of you're blind to all their flaws, right? So I think it's the reverse. I think so that, and which made us ask the question: what is it that we're not giving the world? We gave so much, Nobel prizes and this and ways and flash keys and the cherry tomatoes and all that stuff, and it's like it's not it. Maybe it's nice, but it's not it. So the question is, what is the thing? Did you get a sense from talking? I see you're talking to a lot of people, Jews and non-Jews. Do you get a sense for what is the thing that they're looking to get from Jews?
They know that we are different to everyone else, and we should articulate who we are. We should say that we are chosen by God to be.
Hold on. I'm going to hold you to it. Hold on a sec. If you love someone, right, they don't need to articulate shit to you. They just need to be there. They are, by their actions we shall know you, right? There's no need to articulate anything. You just are. My kid, I love my kid. He doesn't need to articulate anything. In fact, he can do the opposite of a loving action. I would still love him, right? Because I
perhaps
feel
not just that. Right. So perhaps not just articulate, but also we need to be that.
Okay.
We need to be that.
Okay. So maybe we can zero in on what is it that we are not being or not doing. Forget what we're not saying. What are we?
I think as individuals, as a nation, and in a nation that speaks to the wider world, the Jewish people are meant to be a nation of priests. They're meant to be a nation that is God-centric, Torah-centric, and no, that does not mean creating some kind of extremist theocracy in Israel, but it means that it's actually much more of a grassroots thing, that we as a Jewish people express ourselves and live our lives and lifestyle, and also justify Israel's actions and Israel's very right to be in a godly way. It's so ironic because we're fighting this war talking to the West based on secular democratic values. Meanwhile, the war we're fighting is in the Middle East, and that is it's a world that respects two things: uncompromising strength and those who invoke the name of God. And those are the two things that we need to be doing more of. So that, I think, really gets to the root. But Jews are very, very scared to say this. They'd be very scared to say publicly to say that the reason this land is ours is because it's an eternal inheritance granted by God Himself.
We want to have some kind of rational thing that because once you
but how's that working for us?
No, it's not working for us.
Yeah,
it's clearly not working for us. The problem is we have to walk this very, very small middle line, because on the one hand we don't want to be jihadis and just the 72 virgins route, like we just believe and that's just it's just some belief. On the other hand, strictly being like Western democratic, it doesn't stand on anything. There's no eternal foundation, and that's also this thing of the Jew. The Jew is like walking between these two worlds. Ollie, when you're talking, it occurs to me that part of our problem, first of all, is that Jews themselves have no idea about what you're talking about for the most part. We ourselves don't have any especially here in the United States. We don't have any education about this. And also, when I go to Israel and I see how, we just want to be normal people. The French are normal people and the Spanish are normal people. We just want to be in our country just normal people, just like the French. Like, there's also no kind of sense on the street of Tel Aviv that there's this eternal thing, Give each people their country. That's our country. Just leave us alone and let us be. It's disconnected from this eternal thing. it's like the education, as much as we need to educate the world about who we are, we also have to understand within the Jewish people uh, who we are, it seems.
Absolutely. It's why I set up JTV. It's the call of the hour. Um, yeah, you're right. We need to
What are the obstacles that you
rediscover who
face
we
at
are.
J? What are the obstacles at JTV that you face when you're thinking, like, how am I going to reach people in a way that they can hear it, that they can understand it? Like, what are the things that block the message from reaching the people?
Is it not sexy
There's
enough?
always this
What's the
yeah, well, there's always this balance between what is it that people will what is it that I can do that will get people to actually click and watch the content versus what do I actually want to say? And
Right.
so always trying to get that balance. So
Okay.
trying to make the content, but I can't do too much of either end because if I say exactly what I want to say, but no one's listening. But then if I do exactly what the people are looking for, then I'll end up just doing prank videos, which by the way, we have done a few of on JTV. But I think it's about getting that balance of trying to constantly think what are ways in which I can engage people. Obviously, there's been a greatly heightened engagement with October 7th. The other barrier is also just funding. It's challenging to raise funds. People often prioritize, obviously other things that are more specifically, let's say, to do with the war effort, or let's say even the educational front. They'll think of schools or ongoing organizations. When you talk about social media and these kind of things, it's a little bit harder for people to, especially people on the donor front, to wrap their head around what it
right?
is you're doing and why it's so important. And perhaps they can't, I've been able to explain to you the gravity of why this is so important and why it deals with so many of the roots of what we're dealing with. But it's hard to explain that in a brief conversation. But there's so many things. I've been able to raise funds for some animated videos and mini documentaries and all those kind of things. Last year, I produced a documentary about the settlements called Settling the Facts, which did really well. But there's like 100 more things I'd love to
So
do.
in
But
a perfect
that's not
world, if you had the funding, like, what is it that and how would what is the message and how would you tell that story?
the message would be to inspire Jews and non-Jews in the relevance, truth, and beauty of Jewish wisdom, and of as I articulated before, the role of the Jewish people and the purpose for the world, for all of humanity. And we're doing this. We do a lot of this, but how would I wish to expand it? I'd love to have 5 me's. I do have a show, but I'd love to have other people like me doing shows covering different kind of areas and topics. There's so much that we could delve into. I'd love to do mini documentaries and animated videos and build a whole team basically where we can, cover Jewish wisdom. We can cover miracles in Jewish history. We can do an ethical show and, talk about Jewish ethics, talk about the Jewish impact on values and civilization. And you could do some more light-hearted content and culture. I mean, it could just the idea is that there's so much to talk about because Judaism and Jews throughout history have touched so many areas of the world's story.
Here's the thing. I mean, first of all, this is all exactly the kind of things we're thinking about. We're trying to launch a platform for some Jewish humor on identity politics last year, but then the war started and just reshuffled everything. We started to doing these live things. I think there's a group within the Jewish people who sort of shares these ideas. Okay, they have a more traditional approach to the book and the message, not as literal or orthodox about it, but that kind of take the spirit of it, and we need to be here and to be strong, and this is our place, and sort of that picture you described, and that feels like the sort of the outer layer, the externality of the story. But then there's also the internality of the story, because if we look at history, and this is part of this research that Seth and I did, if we looked at history, we can see that it wasn't just enough for Jews to simply hold on to the book. The book is good. It's like a survival kit, but it's not the thing in of itself. You have to look inside of it and see that there's certain work that we need to do. And that's the part that most people don't like, we don't like to work. I mean, come on. Yeah, even during the temples, the height of the Jewish kingdom, where people gathered and lived in love and harmony, already there was this sense of, but what's in it for me, right? That sensation. And what we find repeatedly in the sources and throughout history is that as long as Jews think of what's in it for me, and they start to sort of separate from each other based on that, no, this is how I'm going to get more. No, this is how I'm going to get more. This constant friction that eventually we let this friction tear us apart. That is our downfall, and that prevents us from reaching a higher state of being. So it's not just enough to have a strong army and a strong deterrence and this is our God-given land and all that. No, there's something we need to do about ourselves. There's some form of inner correction on our attitude toward the world. In other words, we're selfish, we're egoists. We need to correct that. That is the correction that this one God, the Creator, has entrusted us with. And if we don't do it, we don't set an example for the rest of the world to do it. And then everyone else just keeps hating on us because they can't do it on their own. What do you feel about that story?
Obviously, wasn't that the lesson of October 7th? I mean, Israel was tearing itself apart prior.
Dude, it was the lesson of the first temple, the second temple, the Spanish expulsion, the British expulsion, the French expulsion, the Polish expulsion, the Holocaust. You know how many lessons like that there were? We made 22 episodes on every lesson,
When the Jews wanted to come to America, the Jews in America didn't want to accept all of these Polish Orthodox here, the liberal Jews that were here, the Reform Jews that were here, trying to assimilate and make a home here, didn't want to bring all of these Orthodox here because they thought it would ruin.
Before the Holocaust, you went to Poland. The animosity between Jews in Europe, between the Orthodox, the assimilationists, and the socialists that were looking toward Israel, it was terrible. They were ratting each other out. They were willing to. The first president of Israel, Weizmann, he was like, "Oh, I guess we'll have to lose a few million in Europe. What can you do?" Like this attitude of like from the one group in humanity that should be above that should value the connection with each other more than anything else. So how do we get that thing? Because that is scary to people. They were forced to do it, just like, on the 6th, we were ready to tear each other apart. On the 7th, on the 8th, we're, hugging and holding each other up, right? How do we do it without that tragedy in the middle? Because we don't have, it's not like China, we're only 15 million of us. So we don't have a lot to spend, in terms of blood lessons. So how do we do it, do you think? And do you feel also, by the way, do you feel that this is what the crux of the matter is, or in your mind, it's just enough to be, we're the people of God and we're here in Israel and we're good people and like us and let's be friends?
I think it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. The paradigm shift that I think connects everything that you've said, which I think, this is what I think can be really helpful, is on a purely individual level, how you look at your life and the reason for which you're here. We're realizing that, and we've been realizing this for the last few decades, that a life that is focused on just worrying ever more about one's own needs and building up one's own needs more and more and more isn't working, isn't making people happy. It's actually making people even more depressed. We have even higher rates of depression in the Western world, more abundance there than we do in the third world. And we thought that the answer is to go to therapy and to dig deeper into our needs more and more. And all it's doing is actually making people feel even more needy, even more stressed, creating even more narcissists. And the whole self-love thing isn't even working anyway. It's not even creating happy people. And the reason is not just because it's not a good idea and it's not nice and it's self-obsessed, but also because us being needy isn't true. And the reason for that is that we never asked to be born. So if I didn't ask to be born, how can I be needy? If I didn't even need to be here in the first place. And a lot of people are realizing this. And I think for so long, we're so busy throughout the generations just trying to get by and survive day to day. We didn't actually have the time to think about what am I doing this all for? And now we have a crisis of mental health in the Western world where people are starting to think they're getting told they've got to focus more and more on their needs and worry about even more particular needs than just survival. And it's becoming more and more stressful. And more people are thinking, what's the point?
Right.
Why do I need to be so? And so they think to themselves, why do I need all this stress? Why do I need all this worry? And there's that haunted voice at the back of their head that says, you don't need it. Now that can be a very depressing thought. If you think about, I don't need to be here. But it could also be an extremely liberating thought. So the reason we don't like taking care of our needs actually is because we didn't even need to be here. So suddenly you've got to, this is not my plan to begin with. So the question is, well, why am I here? So you're left with two options. You're left with two options. Either there is no reason for you being here. It's all an accident. In which case, I don't need it.
Yeah, we can finish this right now. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I don't need it, and it's not necessary. Alternatively, I don't need to be here, so I'm here because I'm needed. Because whoever put me here needs me to be here. God needs me here. So suddenly, the reason I'm here is not, you spoke about like selfish versus selfless, good versus bad, all these things. I think the most simple way to put it is, am I needy or am I needed? And at what way am I going to look at life? So the second you look at life that way, suddenly life is no longer burdensome because I'm not the needy one. And I don't need to focus so much on my needs because, yes, I'll take care of them, but only to the extent that it allows me to continue to do what I'm needed for, not because I need life to go exactly the way I think it should. And then suddenly life can be about, well, what can I do to serve the purpose for which I'm here? And I can let go a bit of my own self-centeredness. And so we can ask that on an individual level, on a communal level, on a national level, and on a global level. And I think that really holds the key. I think that paradigm shift is what will hold the key to us as a Jewish people asking, let's just stop focusing for a sec on our own survival and actually just ask, what's our purpose? Why are we here in the first place? And at an individual level as well. I find it in my own life, I found it such a helpful, and I have to take, I can't take credit for this paradigm shift. It's groundbreaking theological and psychological work of Rabbi Manis Friedman, where he's basically been saying that the human being, all they really need to keep going is not love or respect or pleasure. It's just knowing they're necessary, knowing they're needed. And I think that really holds the key when we can let our needs take a step back and focus instead on what's actually needed of us. That, I think, will hold the key to a lot of these issues that you refer to.
Where does he get this from? Or where does that come from?
I think Hasidut. I think a lot of it comes from the Tanya, the groundbreaking Hasidic text of the Alter Rebbe, who actually one of the big premises of the Tanya is God's desire for this world, which actually comes from a midrash, which is from Parshat Naso, which says that God created the world out of his desire to dwell in the lowest of all worlds. In other words, the world that would be most separate from him, the most therefore having free will. And he desired to build that relationship with us. And therefore, the point is that he kind of by Friedman whittled down is, well, clearly that means it's about his need, not ours. And it's funny because most religion actually looks at life and looks at theology as being about you're needy, you're in trouble, you're born in sin, and you've got to get to heaven. Whereas Judaism was always saying all along, you don't need anything. you're here because you have a God that needs, and you don't need to get to heaven. Obviously, you don't even need to be here. You're here because he wants to come down to earth.
So we study, related wisdom, but there is there is a difference, and I met this difference. I've encountered it. We've encountered it on several occasions, where there's a general sort of relief when you hear what you're saying, right? It's like, it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's God, and you're needed, and God just wants to be here, and just open the door for him, and all the rest of it. And what I find a little, I found that it's a great popular story, and I'd be actually very happy if people started to even listen to this story. But I feel it's an incomplete story, because there's no such thing as free lunch. There's work that needs to be done here. So I don't believe, the creator was all Baal Sulam, Yehuda Ashlag. Baal Sulam writes about how the creator is just quality of love and bestowal and giving. So he really does not have any needs per se. You can talk about a need, a desire, right, to have a creature, an object of love, a relationship, as you said in the beginning, but there's no real desire. The creator is complete with or without that. He just sort of wanted to add to that, right, to that complete, that perfection somehow. And that's where we enter the picture. But we are opposite from the creator. We are creatures of reception, because the creator wants to give. He needs someone that will receive. And that's the thing that we need to correct. We can't just come here and just waltz in and this is all heaven and bring it on. Why am I, complicating things? It's really, it's all just for me, and I'll just sit down here and receive everything. It's clearly also not that, right? So there's something that needs to be corrected. There's some work that needs to be done, and it's specifically in how we relate to one another. We find not so much the creator, but one another.
So I mean, I would challenge this notion of he's he doesn't need, it's just a little addition. It's only coming from him. This is either he does something it's either him or it's no one else. It's so if he creates us, that's because it's out of himself desiring us.
Absolutely.
And something coming from his very core and essence. So absolutely. That's some people like to say, oh, he doesn't. People often like to say he sort of needs it. I sort of think, well, what are you saying? If we weren't here, then he'd be fine with that. And then what is this whole project? Well, what is this whole project of creation?
Listen, we can't really speak of the creator. I mean, we could sit here and talk. It's like kids talking about, like, dad's boss at work. Like, what do we know, right? We know nothing. But people who attained some contact with the upper force of nature, they wrote, and the Tanya, related to the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Sulam also wrote, was a successor of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and the writings of Diari. So as we said, we've studied this, this lineage of Jewish sages, and they all speak about it. That it's all geared for us. I mean, if anything, it's our experience at the end of the day. That's the only thing we can speak of. You can speak of your experience, I can speak of my experience, etc. From our experience, the world is not a perfect world, even though it was created by you could say, how can a perfect creator create an imperfect world? But that's my experience. That's what I see. And the reason I see it is because my glasses are broken. I have a broken perception of reality, and that's why I see all this pain and suffering and all the carnage and everything. It's somehow something is broken in how I see it. And I'm looking at only one frame out of the whole movie, so I don't even know how it started and how it ends. But if we could look at things in the right way, we would find that I can correct that perception. And the way to correct it is to correct my attitude towards others. That, at the end of the day, is at the heart of every single human crisis, including even the religious crises around the world that we see around the world. People have a lack, a deficiency. They feel incomplete. They feel needing. And so they fill that with pictures of this world. Oh, you'll get to heaven, you'll get to this, you'll get riches, you get all kinds of fulfillments that do not fulfill that one desire that we have, which is for a relationship with the creator, as you said in the beginning. To feel that creator, to be in a relationship with that creator, I need to be able to feel him the way he is. And if I'm opposite, I can't feel him. So that's sort of the crux of what we're, talking about, that we have to somehow
But when
correct
you say,
how we relate to each other.
But when you say he gears it all towards us, that's right. But does that mean it doesn't mean anything to him? It's like a husband that gears everything to. No, I understand that. Of course, I know you didn't mean that, but I'm saying some people do. They just think it's all for us and it's up to us whether to take it or not.
Right.
The point is that it's mutual. There's mutual feeling, there's mutual love and connection and need for that on either side. And the initiation actually started with God, obviously, and therefore in some ways his need is even greater. But I have never understood why people think that looking at it this way somehow makes us think as if we're off the hook. If anything, it becomes way more powerful, way more like your actions are of cosmic value. Like you're here because your creator needs you to be here, has a purpose for you, and I can affect him, I can impact him, I can make him happy, I can make him sad, I can
so let's ask a tough question.
Affect his world. That's pretty cosmic, pretty
definitely
scary.
No, definitely. No, it definitely puts a lot of burden on your shoulders, right? And that's one of the reasons people don't like Jews, because we're a little too conscious, right? For their, like, let me just sleep here and just let me take a long nap. The tough question is this, and I think that's the one that Seth and I are like struggling with, is like, we're saying, look, all this stuff, the work that happens in all these cosmic choices, at the end of the day, it's a choice you make vis-a-vis your fellow men. This is where the creator is revealed. It's not revealed in some, it's here. It's revealed. I mean, you could say it's in the rocks and the trees and the animals, but most of all in people, Adam, right? Human, from the word dome, similar to. We're potentially similar to the creator, but we're not there yet. And it's revealed in the relationship. And as we said in the beginning, October 6th was a movement in the opposite direction from that. Like we definitely didn't treat each other like the creator is standing behind every person. So the question is, how do we do that? Behind all the stuff that's happening, all this, all the data and all the stories and all the interpreters in the studios and all, like, how at the end of the day we get people to come out of the house and start relating to others as if they are more important. How?
I think we should be speaking to more Chabad rabbis in that regard. Because
you think they have the answer?
Every single to this question, yeah, I do. You find that I don't know how they've done it, and maybe you should get them as your next guest. Find some Chabad rabbis. They seem to have created a space where you have people who are religious, secular, right and left, Reform, Orthodox, whatever. All of them are happy to be there, be at a Chabad house. None of them hear the word Chabad and suddenly it's like this toxic, I don't want to be associated with that. Chabad are cancelled. And I think part of the reason is because in there, it really comes from Tanya actually as well. There is an understanding at a deep religious level, at a profound level, that every single Jew is infinitely precious. People often say that Chabad are non-judgmental, and I don't think they're non-judgmental. I think they're very judgmental. Their judgment is that every single Jew is an essential, highly valued part of Am Yisrael, and that regardless of what they may describe themselves as, regardless of what they may have done in the past or present, regardless of how they may look and how they may come across, we are all part of one being, basically. And so I think that it really starts in the head. I remember learning, I don't know whether it was Hasid or Kabbalah or something, but it stuck with me, this idea that the human body is designed in a way where you have the head up top, then the heart, right? And then the actions, right? So showing that it all flows from our head downwards, flows into our and we don't want it to be the other way, right? It's very dangerous when the emotions control the head and vice versa. The healthy way, the godly way, is to understand what is true, and then from that, we channel our emotions and our actions. And so I think it all starts, and that again is what informs JTV. It starts from having an appreciation and understanding of the inherent value and worth of every single Jew.
And then, just that democracy could or could not be a terrible, terrible system, because giving everybody the right to vote is great as long as everybody has some basic education about life. If you just take savage people and Hitler was elected. If you just take, not saying the Germans were savage, actually, it was the opposite. They were just very, educated. But we see what education can do. You can educate people to do almost anything, or probably anything, because of the kind of hardware that we were built with. So valuing the Jew is okay, could be step A. It's a critical piece to the equation. The next thing would be, so now what is the education that they need to have about who they are and what they're doing? Because it's not enough to just have you at my table. If we're going to break out of this cycle towards some messianic future, maybe is not the right word. It maybe brings up too many weird imaginations, but some, what the prophets talk about of nation won't lift sword against nation, and everyone everyone will know my name from the smallest to the greatest. Like, this is where we want to get. We're not just looking to have people stop spray painting our restaurants. We actually want a world that God dwells in. That's the real goal, where it's good for everyone, and we are just a pipeline of his light into this world, like you said, a kingdom of priests. That requires more than just bringing someone to the table. That requires educating the generation and then their children, and it probably takes a few generations of proper education until people are raising families this way and people understand who they are and how it all fits in. So step one, definitely everyone is critical. Step two is then, how do we fill all of those critical people with the right education and understanding? And that's what I imagine that's what your mission is, to spread this. I think one part, and if we can maybe share something with you, is that somehow it's part of the education has to be that we are one body. We are one, like how much we all, I guess Chabad does get this really right. We don't care if you're religious, secular, left, right, whatever, like, come into my home. We need to feel and project to the world that we're all one family, whether we disagree with each other or we don't agree with each other or whatever, or wherever we are in the political spectrum, but that we feel and we love each other somehow. We have this education inside of us, like this ideal Jewish family, that we all love each other, we all have each other's backs, and I think that will help us towards the world.
I'll tell you what, one of these is Israeli girls that was taken hostage. I heard her in an interview in America afterwards. She was speaking to a Jewish group, and she could speak some Arabic. I don't know whether it's because her family may have mistakenly chosen to, take in Gaza residents and look after them and give them work and all these things, but she could understand a bit of Arabic. And when she was hostage, she overheard one of the Arab terrorists in Gaza watching the news in Israel and seeing the IDF soldiers along the border, seeing Jews, dancing and uniting, and really, you remember what it was like, really coming together in those weeks and months afterwards. And he supposedly she said he turned to one of his fellow terrorists and said, "Wow, these Jews are scary when they're united."
Ollie,
there it is.
Yeah,
There it is. Nobody would even think of lifting a hand against us if
we
we
brought so
were.
many quotes on this topic. I mean, over the from from the Arabs from in Gaza, the Arabs in Lebanon. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like the message is right here, but again, there's something inside of us. I really hope. I mean, I know this feels like just the beginning of a conversation. Like we're just warming up, but we have to bring this to a wrap, unfortunately. But I really hope that we find a way
That you can
to.
unite the Jewish people. No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That you can do it, and you just let us know when it's happening, and then we'll we'll join you. No, that you
Look,
know
by
that
definition, it's something that we all do.
it's true. I mean, listen, we've been on it. You know, you've been doing it since 2016. We've been on it also since 2013 or 14. In fact, the documentary we put out in 2014 and another clip. I'll send those to you. Maybe you can put them up on your channel. And they were like, you know, over a decade ago, and talking about these big things that people didn't want to hear. But I really just hope that more people tune in and get a sense for your, you know, for that part of yours, because it says everything that we would love to hear from every living Jew, and eventually from every living person. So we can only be grateful for
Well,
your.
one thing is guaranteed, that it will happen.
Yes,
It will
no,
happen sooner or later.
we
Hopefully
agree.
sooner.
Listen, we ask our guests usually before they go to read a short quote. I have a quote from the introduction to the book of Zohar, an article that was written by Baal Sulam. Why don't you give it a read if you don't mind? Yeah,
Sure.
put it in the chat. Yeah.
Indeed, when all human beings agree to abolish and eradicate their will to receive for themselves, and have no other desire but to bestow upon their friends, all worries and jeopardy in the world would cease to exist, and we would all be assured of a whole and wholesome life, since each of us would have a world caring for us, ready to fulfill our needs. Yet while each of us has only a desire to receive for ourselves, it is the source of all the worries, suffering, wars, and slaughter we cannot escape. They weaken our bodies with all sorts of sores and maladies, and you find that all the agonies in our world are but manifestations offered to our eyes to prompt us to revoke the evil shell of the body and assume the complete form of the will to bestow. That's very powerful. Wow, where's that from, Zohar?
That's from the Baal Sulam wrote the commentary in the Book of Zohar and sort of made it more accessible to people so they can read it. And he wrote an article after he was done with it, and it's called the Introduction to the Book of Zohar. I can send you the full article later, no problem. And also to our viewers, we put some links here and there. So yeah, but you know, I think our sages have said it all. I think you've alluded to that as well, and it's just up to us to, you know, to blow the horn to let everyone know that this is, we have it. You know, just come get it and let's make a change. So, Ollie, I very happy to have met another you know, seeker,
First
with a great
class
heart.
warrior.
Yes, you know, makes us feel a little less alone in this in the battle. So,
Thanks,
um,
Ollie.
It's
Tons of good luck and good success with continued success with JTV.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's you're right. It seems like the truth is lost to so much of the world. But that's a sign that we're nearing the time in which truth pervades the whole world. So I guess we should all just keep at it, eh?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I hope we can stay connected, and please, you know, if you're putting this on your channel, everyone is welcome to watch the first 22 episodes of the Thejewfunction, where we explain like this, put out this whole thesis that explains it. Like, you know, we talked about the root and solution to antisemitism, but we really didn't get into it. We really kind of already went a step up. But for people who want to know the full story, it's there. And we're happy to share anything and everything with your viewers as well. And this is Thejewfunction. We hope people, if you listen to this, if you like this, consider sharing it with more people. That's all we need to get the conversation going. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, Seth. And have a great new year. It's coming up. So all the best.
Thank
Bye,
you so
guys.
much.
Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Shana Tova.